How do you raise healthy children, and what are some of the keys to it? I'm going to give you 5, and these are just 5 things that I think will be useful and helpful. The first one is distinguish self-esteem, self-confidence. Most psychology books to this day still do not distinguish self-esteem from self-confidence. What's the difference? Self-esteem, being esteem or appraisal about a person, a being. The other is about what we do and confidence in what we do. So one is a judgment, one is a feeling. I always like asking people, where do you feel self-esteem? When I feel confident that I can do something, well, so I think about something I can do, scramble eggs. Those suckers going to get scrambled. I'm confident. It's a feeling. There's muscle tension, there's breath, there's a certain facial and eye look, and there's a voice of confidence. But where do you feel self-esteem? It's a judgment. It's an appraisal. It's a judgment of someone's value as a person. Well, how much is a person worth? What are they going for these days? So self-esteem is about the appraisal, the worth of a person. So if we separate person from behavior, if we distinguish who I am, my being, from my doing, then self-esteem is an appraisal of my worth and value. How much am I worth? How much is a newborn baby worth? Well, we say they're unconditional positive regard, unconditional self-value. So if it's unconditional, then it's not high or low. So I would encourage you as parents not to use the phrase, do you have high self-esteem? Is your self-esteem getting higher? Because if it's getting higher, it could get lower. It's conditional. Conditional on what? Looks, intelligence, money, strength, social skills, athletics. What is it conditioned on? Well, if it's conditional, you could lose it because it's conditional. But if it's unconditional, then there's no conditions. It just is. The value, the worth is a given. So by separating person and behavior, by distinguishing self-esteem, self-confidence, now I can do the self-esteeming in contradistinction to confidence and feeling good and strong about whatever it is that I can do. So that'd be the first thing. Distinguish person from behavior. And once you distinguish person from behavior, now we can do unconditional self-esteem. If we don't make that distinction, if we confuse the two, and most psychology books, most self-help books still confuse the two. You'll see articles in Sunday papers, how to raise your self-esteem. And what do they tell you? Well, read and be friendly and make friends and well, that's all about confidences. That's confidences in things. So if we're going to really make that distinction and treat our children as unconditionally valuable, no matter what they do, no matter what grades they get, no matter what things they go through, they're unconditionally valuable. So we separate person and behavior. To confuse them, to identify you are what you do. You are what you feel. I am my emotions. You are what you think. Well, to identify is going to create unsanity. I get that from Alfred Korzybski. He wrote the book Science and Sanity. And he said that when we identify things that are different, it's a form of unsanity. And continuing that process, it'll lead to insanity. So distinguishing person from behavior. Once we make that distinction, now I can do unconditional positive regard. And if it's unconditional, then it can't be higher or lower. It just is. You as a person are valuable. So how do we do that as parents? Well, when I raised my daughter Jessica, I became a single parent when she was 3 years old and raised her till she was 26 and finally got her out of the house. But as she was growing up, I found the language to say to her frequently. She would go out to play soccer. She wasn't real athletic, but she'd go out and she'd play when she was 7 or 8 and when she was 10 or 11. And so she'd go out and she was on a team. And if the team lost, I said, so whatever happens today, no matter if you win or lose, you're just as lovable, just as precious, you're just as valuable as if you had won or whatever. To make that distinction between what you do and who you are. So when she would have upsets, when her friends didn't invite her to a certain party, or when something else didn't go the way she wanted to, I always made it clear that who you are as a person, I love, you're precious, you can't become more precious. It's unconditional. Now what you do is quite conditional. So distinguishing those two, I think, is really important. That then lets us be free to go do all kinds of things. If your self-esteem is not on the line. If your self-esteem is on the line by the grades you get, by the friends you have, by whether your team wins or not, by whether you're cool in school or not. If it's conditioned, then the self-esteem's always on the line. Therefore, you're under existential threat constantly. So by separating that, we actually free them. Go try that. Go see what happens. See if you're good at that. So the first thing is distinguish person and behavior. The second one is give unconditional positive regard. And that's not, it sounds so easy. It's not as easy as it sounds. But once you have that belief that they're valuable, it's a given. Nobody gave it to them. Nobody can take it away once it's a given. The third one would be, let's now help them search for and find their uniqueness. What can you do? What are you good at? Everybody is not good at lots of things. Everybody's incompetent. Nobody is the Renaissance person who is good at everything. Everybody is incompetent about something. What are you incompetent about? Can you feel good about yourself even though you're incompetent? If you have unconditional self-esteem, you can. Because your self-esteem, your self-value, your worth is a given. Now you're free to find out what you can do and to face reality straight on. I'm not good at that. It's okay. I don't have to be good at everything. So now we can embrace their uniqueness. Now, one of my strengths is studying and school. I loved school when I was in school and did pretty well, so academics came pretty easily. With my daughter Jessica, they didn't come easy. And what she discovered, was she's really creative. So she loved playing the violin. She learned to play the violin, and she loves the drawings. She can get lost in Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and all the creative. She went out to California one time and spent some time with some friends and ended up going to one of those Renaissance restaurants where in the middle they ride horses and fight with swords. She said, she came back, that's what I want to be when I grow up. A few years later, I walked into her bedroom and she had bought this sword, this real, live, full-length sword. As a parent, learning to not live my life through her is, I think, really, really important. I have to embrace her uniqueness and support and be a friend to her uniqueness and her. So as a parent, I can't live my life through my children. And so wanting so much for our children. I remember my father, he was a mathematician, he was a teacher, and he wanted me to go into mathematics. In fact, when I was in high school, he wanted me to take all the mathematics courses, so I took the mathematics courses just because he wanted me to take the mathematical course. And he wanted me to go in this new field called computers. And I said, there's no future in that. And I think he was disappointed when my interest was in psychology and other things. So our children have their own lives, and so being able to embrace whatever their interest is, being a friend to it, and one of the dangers of all of us as parents, we sometimes want so much for them, we want them, and sometimes we live our lives through them and impose on them. So being able to separate that and find, what are you good at? What makes you feel alive? What are some of the talents and the predispositions that are clamoring inside, ready to be unleashed, and standing by and supporting them through that process, even if we don't understand it, if you don't understand it. So by separating person and behavior, validating their worth and their lovability, their person, unconditionally, and then embracing their uniqueness and helping them to find that so that they can take responsibility for their own life. So one of the things oftentimes under that one is that we care so much, we love so much, we want to nourish so much, we don't let them fall on their face. We don't let them learn from consequences. We don't let them, we keep saving them and rescuing them. So how do we raise healthy children? Well, sometimes letting life be what life is and helping them have the resources for being resilient and stepping back and finding their own personal powers and their skills for handling those kinds of things. So I mentioned that she left at 26. She was getting really comfortable. In fact, I was traveling a lot. I'd come home to her house. I'd move a chair. Dad, what are you doing? I said, it's my house. And I said, really, you need to get out. You need to get an apartment, or you need to pay bills, develop your own credit, and everything. So we finally got her out. She's down in Phoenix now working, and she bought her first car while she was down there. And so helping our children get on their own feet so that they can be fully functioning human beings and living the life that they want to live. The next thing I would say in raising healthy children is knowing and understanding and embracing the developmental stages. The developmental stages. So the first stage is the stage of trust. This is Piaget's work. Piaget and Erikson and the others mapped out the mental stages, the social stages, the developmental stages that children go through. And the first one is trust. Is the world trustworthy? Do the caretakers, do they take care? Can I trust my life into their hands? The second one is industry. Industry starts around 9 months, 12 months, and as children become mobile and they start moving, and you have to kid-proof the house because they're going to get into stuff. Industry, do you allow it? Or do you keep preventing them from getting into stuff and finding out how things work and finding their own skills and strengths, because they can create such a mess. And so the question may be messy house, and a child is learning his or her own industry, or a perfect house that's well taken care of and looks perfect all the time, but the child is as it were in bonds and not allowed to really develop. During that industry period, that's when the child goes through the no's. And what they're doing is just individuating. They're just individuating. When they say no, no, no. Well, before they say the no, they do the no. You know, you put stuff in their mouth and it's their way of individuating. Oh, that's what's happening. They're individuating. They go through that in the teenage years once again, as they now have to distinguish themselves and individuate and differentiate themselves from everybody else. And it's just a developmental stage. I've met adults who couldn't say no. I've met adults in our trainings who said, okay, say no, and set a boundary. Well, they can't do that because it was tabooed, it was forbidden, it was prohibited as a child. And now as an adult, they have to learn to say no and set those boundaries. So this is that industry period of time as a child is becoming more and more him or herself. And so knowing the developmental stages and then being able to embrace them and to work with them so that we don't impose a lot of unrealistic adult impositions upon our children when they're just going through their stages. And they go through lots of different stages. So embracing those stages, welcoming them. The fifth thing I think, and maybe the most important is, in raising healthy children, be a healthy adult.
No.
Yes. Now, Yvonne spoke about this, and Rosalind spoke about this, being the model, being the healthy adult. Most of I don't know the different generations we have here, but you may never have, I never experienced my father or mother coming out and saying, we've got a problem, and inviting me to see a weakness, a vulnerability. So being open, being real, being authentic with our children so they can see our ups and downs and that life is not just perfect. Being authentic, being healthy, so that we're healthy with our emotions, we're healthy with the way we persevere, the way we are resilient, the way we treat other people. And so as they go through their stages, if they have a healthy role model in you, I think that's one of the really great ways to raise healthy children, by modeling it. Now, the danger is we don't want to invite them into adult issues before they're ready for that. So it has to be age appropriate wherever they are. But inviting them to see your authenticity. And so those are 5 things. I'm going to stop because I'd like to have lots of questions and interaction. So those are 5 things I think that would really make that that process of raising healthy children. So